The following program is brought to you in color.
Hi, I'm Dax, and today we're talking about the Library of Congress. Recently, I've been using loc.gov in order to just do research about my local community using their Chronicling America tool that allows you to search millions of newspaper records all across the United States. And it got me interested in the history of the Library of Congress and kind of why it became an institution in the first place and what its original role in society was. Over the next 4-5 videos, I'm going to be highlighting important historical events that led to the creation and the expansion of the Library of Congress, as well as people who played an important role in its creation. And then I'll also be detailing just my own personal experience with the Library of Congress resources that I've been able to find and use, and just the value that I feel like it's played in my own personal life in understanding my community, my family, and life in America throughout history. So to start out, the Library of Congress was first an idea proposed by James Madison, one of the founding fathers, yet it wasn't instituted into law until 15 years after he proposed it. In 1800, the 6th Congress of the United States put forth an act that provided money and kind of a written record detailing that a Library of Congress should be built. So the exact wording of that proposition is held in Section 5 of the first session of the 6th Congress, and it says, "And be it further enacted that for the purchase of such books as may be necessary for the use of Congress at the said city of Washington, and for fitting up a suitable apartment for containing them, and for placing them therein, the sum of $5,000 shall be, and hereby is appropriated." So not only is it notable that $5,000 is all that was allocated for this library initially, but also we read said city of Washington. In the sections before Section 5, Sections 1 through 4, detail the move of the capital from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C. So it's interesting to see through this session of Congress that the library was exceptionally important in the creation of the early American project. That's probably in no small part due to the influence of Thomas Jefferson. He was the vice president of the United States at this time, and he had the utmost respect for academic and intellectual and artistic work. Thomas Jefferson is an interesting character in American history. He was very interested in scientific and academic work. He had a large personal library, which will become important later as we talk about some of the issues that were run into by the Library of Congress in its early years. He really focused on putting science, knowledge, and literacy as a top priority in his governance. And he really emphasized the importance of this literacy for anyone who wanted to hold public office. And that's no more clearly shown than in a letter that he sent to Samuel H. Smith early on in 1814, when he said, "You know my collection, its condition and extent. I've been 50 years making it, and have spared no pains, opportunity, or expense to make it what it is. While residing in Paris, I devoted every afternoon I was disengaged for a summer or two in examining all the principal bookstores, turning over every book with my own hand, and putting by everything which is related to America, and indeed whatever was rare and valuable in every science." One of the biggest setbacks to the Library of Congress happened very early in its history. At the end of the War of 1812, British came and sacked the Capitol. They set fire to the White House. They set fire to the halls of Congress and other buildings in Washington. As a result, many of the records of the Library of Congress were lost. In that same letter that I detailed earlier, Thomas Jefferson talks about that loss of all of these records. And he says, "Dear sir, I learned from the newspapers that the vandalism of our enemy has triumphed at Washington over science as well as the arts. by the destruction of the public library with the noble edifice in which it was deposited. You hear in Thomas Jefferson's words here just the intense loss that he felt with those records being destroyed. But he didn't let it destroy his resolve for having a Library of Congress, and he doubled down in his efforts, even contributing his own personal library to the Library of Congress. And that became the basis for the reconstruction of the Library of Congress. And so as the reconstruction of the entirety of Washington, D.C. Was undertaken after this destruction, the Library of Congress was a top priority. Many books and records were then purchased from overseas in order to restock the library. Even with this newfound resolve to restore and expand the Library of Congress, the remainder of its history wasn't all smooth sailing. In the next video, I'll be talking about the early, mid, and late 1800s and the different difficulties and advancements that were made by the Library of Congress in its early years.